Good evening, everyone. Carolina Weather Authority meteorologist Joshua Nagelberg. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. And we're here to talk about what's coming up in the next couple of weeks and still some activity potentially in the tropics. It's been pretty much a record season and an incredible season for those of you in Louisiana. But unfortunately, I'd love to say we're just finished, and it looks like we may not be. So if you could subscribe to our YouTube channel for the latest. By the way, we've got ourselves a new banner here. And feel free to leave in the comment which storm you think this is on the satellite image. I'll give you a hint. It was somewhat recent. All right, so anyway, also please visit our webpage for more. And we have a Facebook page and a Twitter account as well. In fact, we've got some articles talking about the chill that's on the way here in the Carolinas for the upcoming weekend. So looking forward to some nice fall color shaping up over the higher terrain here in the high country of the Carolinas and some cooler weather coming. And for many, our first frost and freeze, maybe even getting close to the triad. So we'll have more on that coming up as well. But let's talk about the tropics, and we are definitely not finished yet. There's a new area that hasn't even formed yet. What's going on is we're in a phase of the Madden-Julian Oscillation that does not favor development, but in the next 10 days or so, we have another pulse of what we expect to be perhaps another hurricane that can form in the Northwest Caribbean. And this is going to look somewhat similar to how we saw Delta form, actually Gamma and Delta. The models are starting to pick up now on what could be another region of activity here coming up towards the latter part of October. Tough to say where exactly something exactly will form and where it's even going to go, but the models are starting to show some signs of life coming again around the 20th of October. And if you look at the upper level patterns and climatology, the pattern does not favor a western Gulf storm, so I think people in Louisiana, while you may want to watch this anyway, don't need to be overly concerned. You guys need some time to dry out and clean up here. But Florida and Cuba, Jamaica, the Caymans, maybe the Yucatan, and perhaps even up the East Coast will be the area that I'm more concerned with, as well as the Bahamas and Haiti as well. And that's something that's not completely unheard of this time of the year. We'll go back and look at some climatology here in the coming days. So something we'll watch at this point. Tough to say exactly how intense the system could be. I've looked at many models of the GFS now showing some significant development, and that very well could happen based on what I'm seeing in the basin. But it's not a slam dunk at this point, just something we're going to keep an eye on at this point. Here's the list, and you can see we've gone through Delta. We've had 3 major hurricanes. 9 overall hurricanes and 25 storms, still above the record pace from 2005. The next name on the list will be Epsilon, and it's possible we could even have a Zeta before the end of the month, so we may be up to 27 at this point. Now let's take a look at our forecast from the beginning of the year. Obviously, we're above what we expected with the exception of major hurricanes. We are expecting 4. We've had 3. I do think we will end up with 4. 7 probably not, but you can see the areas that we pinpointed back in May and June to be the most active. Certainly it has been here across the northern parts of the Caribbean, the Bahamas, as well as up in the Carolinas, as well as the Central Gulf. I mean, we had 2 major hurricanes in here and 1 almost major hurricane that hit up in here. And Texas was active as well. We had Hannah and Beta as well. But here, Laura, Sally, and Delta. Okay, sorry. We've said it so much. Have developed in the area in the red here. So that certainly was expected to be active at the beginning of the year. We expected the Carolinas to be active, and they were earlier this year. Not so much of late. That could change, as I'm going to show you guys. And up the East Coast, also something that's been kind of active with Isaias and Faye as well. But South Florida has, for the most part, been pretty fortunate so far. We shall see, because that could change here in the next couple of weeks. The Atlantic Basin shows the remains of Delta pretty much falling apart over East Tennessee, a new low pressure forming here as we start the new week off the Carolina coast. So Delta is going to be on the wayside. We do have an area that we're watching right now, a low chance of development. It's at the low latitudes right now, 10 north, and heading towards the Windward Islands. But development is not too likely at this point. I will show you on the satellite, it does have some thunderstorm activity with it, but it's not very well concentrated at this point. Behind it, there's some thunderstorms as well, but nothing of any significance. And then another wave off of Africa, but it's pretty quiet here in the eastern Atlantic. This is the remains of Delta. Here's the circulation. You can see the Gulf is pretty much cleared out with high pressure building in. It was a hot day in Texas today. I think we saw triple digits around San Antonio and San Angelo, so summer not over just yet. Up the East Coast will be the remains of Delta here. We've got a front coming through the upper Midwest with a little bit of severe weather across the Dakotas and Minnesota tonight. Something we're watching as well in the Pacific. But the Caribbean right now is pretty quiet, and it should stay that way, I think, for a few more days. But we're going to watch this area of thunderstorm activity around Panama and northwest Colombia. As it gyrates northward into the southwest Caribbean, what we should see is a repeat of last, maybe 2 weeks ago, where the pressures are going to drop off and warm water should spawn some form of gyre here, which could form another low pressure system. And the big question mark is how strong and where exactly will it be? And we're not going to know that probably for another 9-10 days, we think. So we're going to watch this wave as it comes by to the west. Development not looking too likely at this point. Here are the remains of Delta. You can see mostly just a cloud swirl with some rain showers. Still some heavy rain in the western Carolinas this evening. And then we'll look at this next wave, which has now been dubbed 93L, around 10 north, 46 west. And you can see this is 46 west right here, so they're showing the low pressure somewhere in this area. All the thunderstorms are sheared off to the north. There's a second area to the south that we'll have to watch. This could split into two pieces, but the models are, let's see, the GEFS is developing the southern piece and bringing it into the Caribbean, but keeping it fairly weak. And this will be something we'll keep an eye on because it may get injected into our area that could develop here in about 9-10 days down the road. A couple solutions, though, a little bit farther north of Puerto Rico shows some development, and that's something we'll have to keep an eye on. The ensemble prediction system, which is the Canadian models, got it all over the place. But notice if it does get up into here after 5 or 6 days, it could have a chance of developing, but not likely to be a threat to land at that point. There are 1 or 2 solutions that do show something holding on, maybe a little bit more intense, like a tropical storm, for example, near the Turks Caicos or the Eastern Bahamas. And that's going to be in 9 or 10 days from now. And that's something we'll keep an eye on. But the majority of the guidance has it splitting into 2 pieces, one going into the Caribbean and staying weak, the other coming up here, getting sheared apart, but maybe trying to make a comeback in here. And then at that point, it's probably moving away to the east of Bermuda. But we'll keep an eye on it. The next name on the list, as I mentioned, was Epsilon. And it might be a battle for the Epsilon name and then the Zeta name between this and our next system, which will likely form. But this doesn't give me a lot of confidence that anything's going to develop in the next 72 hours. Intensity guidance is super low and remains in that direction. So we'll keep you posted on that. Here's a look, though, at the upper level pattern. Here's the big high pressure region that is in the wake of Delta, which is up in here, the remains of Delta, getting picked up by the southern branch of the subtropical jet stream. Here's our anticyclone taking up much of the Gulf of Mexico and the northern Caribbean. And you can see our wave down here is going to move into an area where it's going to get a lot of northerly wind shear in the next couple of days. Not too good for development. So those spaghetti plots I showed you may not even really come to fruition here, as this thing's likely going to get sheared apart. But this wind shear here is expected to relax as the next pulse of the MJO comes in about 9-10 days. And we should see an upper level anticyclone taking over in here. And that's something that we're going to keep an eye on. Now look at the European model ensembles showing really no development in the next 10 days anywhere in this zone. So even this wave coming through here, the European is doing absolutely nothing with. I think there's 1 or 2 solutions that have something subtropical up in here, but nothing we're going to really worry about at that point. So that's good news, but you can see maybe something tries to pop up here in about 9 or 10 days near Panama. So that's something we're going to watch there as well. Now the GEFS does show, as we move on through this upcoming week, high pressure builds into the eastern United States, with another front coming in late in the week, followed by a bigger high, which is going to bring a lot of cool weather down into the northern Gulf. So that's going to shut it down for a while. But you can see on the front that comes through here, we've got some lowering pressure now, and one model run shows something developing near Honduras. We'll have to see about that, but a couple of other ensembles starting to show those lowering pressures in here. And around the 19th or 20th, we'll see if something forms in here or maybe over in here. This could be what's left of our wave coming through. It could try to reform. But as we go further beyond that, you can start to see more solutions aimed at something developing here around the 21st. So a week from Wednesday, we'll have to watch the northwestern and central Caribbean once again. This should look kind of familiar because we saw this pattern a couple weeks ago with Gamma first and then Delta. Now, if you go on into time, you can see nothing really showing much going into the Gulf of Mexico. We do have something perhaps threatening Cuba or moving up towards Florida. This is the 24th. What we're going to need is a trough to come down and pull this northward and high pressure to build back into the west, which it very well could do. And you can see now we're starting to see more solutions kind of diverging, but showing something maybe threatening Florida or coming up through the Bahamas, and then something we'll have to keep an eye on along the East Coast as we get towards the 26th. Again, that's 15 days out, and things are likely going to change. This is just speculation at this point. Water temperatures are still pretty darn warm in here, though, 29 Celsius, so it can definitely support a hurricane. You can see the ocean heat content is still pretty significant in the Northwest Caribbean. The one area it came down a bit was here as Delta cranked up to a Category 4, but that's still pretty high. And, of course, over the Bahamas and off the Florida coast, we still have heat content that can support a strong tropical cyclone. It does drop off, though, when you get closer to Bermuda, as well as getting east of the Outer Banks and away from the Gulf Stream as well. Let's take a look real quick at the GFS parallel, which is going to be the future GFS. And you can see this front comes through and high pressure builds down next weekend into the Gulf states and the southeast. So it'll be much cooler. In fact, that cold front comes all the way down through Florida next weekend, which looks great, right? Well, notice the pressure is starting to drop below it to the south of Cuba and west of Jamaica. And as we get further on, we start to see some feedback development around the 22nd. Near Jamaica. And this particular run of the model takes it up through Cuba, and we have a hurricane coming up close to the Florida coastline and through the Bahamas. And at this point, we'll have to see what happens with this high pressure system. Looking at this run, if you were to extrapolate it, this could be something that would threaten maybe the Outer Banks or even farther up the East Coast as a hurricane. So that's, again, one model run. We're not going to, of course, put a lot of weight into it, but the run before it was also showing a hurricane developing, but this one going out to sea and maybe threatening Bermuda. So again, I showed you that graphic before, and all of it's going to depend on the timing of this high and how it sets up and how strong the ridge is over here over the Atlantic. One thing I've noticed, though, is that the high-pressure ridges off the East Coast have ended up being farther west and stronger, and that's why Louisiana has had so many storms. Now, of course, this new ridge dropping down is going to protect this area from any stormy weather, we think. But Florida and on east and up will be the areas we're watching. Now, the operational GFS has shown this storm over several runs, and you can see some formation around the 20th or 21st. Low pressure forming near the Caymans and spinning up into a hurricane coming up through Cuba, and this would be a Florida threat, maybe Miami or just east, but then turning away from the U.S., at least we think, and perhaps threatening Bermuda. But look, it tries to curl it back towards Atlantic Canada. One thing I want to show you guys real quick is the track of Sandy. Not saying we're going to have another Sandy, of course, but I just showed you that GFS that showed maybe something coming up into the Bahamas and then getting kicked out to sea. Well, we're going to have to see how strong the ridge of high pressure is over here, because when Sandy hit, what happened was the ridge ended up building in and pushing this trough down to the south and pulling it back into New Jersey. It's just an idea of something that could happen, but we're talking October 28th and 29th, and guess when I showed you on the GFS? 27th, 28th. So, just want to show you guys that there's at least some analogs out there and some climatology that says the East Coast is not to write off at this point. Not saying this is going to happen. We don't know yet if we'll have something coming up through Florida or speeding out to sea, coming through the Bahamas or Cuba or even Haiti at that point. But something we're going to watch for you guys. So keep it tuned here, because I've got this area as maybe some potential spots to watch. And that could include something coming up the west coast of Florida, or perhaps coming up nearer to the east of Florida, or going out to sea from the Bahamas. Or the fourth solution would be a Sandy coming out this way and then maybe trying to get pulled back. Again, way too soon to say, just something that I want you guys to be aware of here in the next couple of weeks, as it's definitely looking like another pulse of activity forming in the Western Caribbean. And a couple model runs before did show a second piece of this splitting off and staying behind and trying to make it up toward the Yucatan into the southern Gulf. Again, that's a little far-fetched right now, but we're just not done yet. We're not done with our storms, and we'll have to keep an eye on these waves coming across from Africa, as well as any fronts that come down and stall in this area in here. All right, folks. Well, you guys enjoy your weekend and have a great Monday, and we'll talk soon. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And again, if you recognize this storm, comment in our YouTube comments, and we'll have an answer for you guys by the next video. All right, everyone. Stay safe. God bless.